All right, guys, ladies, this is the second video in the pouch weaving tutorial series. And in the first video, we made our loom, and I showed you guys how to make those cuts and everything. This second video, you're going to need that loom. You're also going to need your scissors, and you're going to need some kind of tape. This happens to be masking tape. Painter's tape would work. I'm not really sure I would use duct tape if I didn't have to, because if you wanted to reuse your loom later on, that tape can tear these teeth, and that would be a problem. You just have to make a new loom. So, and then you also need some kind of strong cotton thread. Like this happens to be carpet warp, and if you are ordering from one of the, I'm sure, millions of sites that you can get carpet warp from. I also put a link in the Google Classroom for it. But if you notice, this thread does not stretch, okay? So if you don't have carpet warp, you could use twine. You could use like that hemp cord. Just be aware that you're going to need quite a bit of it depending on the size of the cardboard that you make. The standard cardboard sizes, they're usually like 4.5 inches wide by about, I don't know, 14 or 15 inches long. That's going to require over 22 or so yards of carpet warp. So just make sure whatever you get to warp your loom with, it's you're going to have enough of it, and that it, most importantly, does not stretch, okay? So to get started warping the loom, I'm going to go ahead, I'm just going to tear myself a piece of tape because I'm going to need 2 pieces, and really that's about all I'm going to need. I'm going to stick these to the edge of my work surface here. And then I've got my carpet warp, my warp strings. And in a weaving, the warp strings are the strings that run vertically inside the weaving. For example, this is the weaving that I did for the other video series that had no sound. But this is what the little finished pouch would look like. You know, you can store things inside of it. There's a pattern on the outside. But the warp strings are those strings that are inside of the weaving, and they are the strings that hold the weaving kind of all together and in place. They allow those colored yarns to not fall out, basically. So yeah, those right there are what we're about to do, those little black vertical strings. So I'm going to straighten this one back out. So you're going to need to like unspool some of this, and I'm just kind of pulling it off of the spool there just so I have enough work space. And to start with, you're just going to take the end of your warp string and you're going to slip it in between these first 2 teeth, okay? So, and I'm going to leave myself a little tail around the back side right there, because that is going to get taped down into place, because we don't want this to come undone until we're finished with the weaving. So I don't want that string to slip out on me later. So before you warp everything, here's something else you might want to do. Make sure you have the same amount of cuts on both ends, okay? So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 on this one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I've got 9 on that end. Making sure you have the same amount on both ends is really important, so you don't end up with a random string and you're like, oh, what do I do with this? So, you know, I have an odd number, and that's fine. If you ended up with an even number on both ends, that's fine too. It's really, you know, it's the same either way. So here's what I'm going to do. I've got that tucked into the first cut. I'm going to go down here to this cut at the bottom like that. Okay. And then on the back side, what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to stretch it across here and loop it around, okay? I'm not trying to warp it on both sides. What I'm trying to do is just warp it on the front side. So, and then with a little bit of help of these little cut teeth that we've done. So, cut number 1, the warp string is in number 1. And then I'm just going to take it and I'm going to go directly out of cut number 2. So, here's what the back looks like. I'm going to slip it through there, just straight to there, okay? And then this is going to go up to cut number 2. I'm just going to pop that one into place. So when you look at the back, I'm going to just loop it around. It's going to go straight into cut number 3, like that. Straight into number 3 at the other end. And I'm going to loop that around into that next cut. And then back up into number 4. Now, what you don't want to do is pull this string so tight that the cardboard starts to like warp on you like this. You don't want these strings so tight that your cardboard bends, okay? It shouldn't look like a bow, okay? It should not look like that when you're finished warping it. If it does, just pop all those strings out and redo it, okay? And also, you don't want them so loose that they're just kind of wobbly, okay? You got to find the good middle of the road on this. You know, you want it tight enough that it doesn't wobble, but you don't want it so tight that it pulls the cardboard. Because we have to fold this eventually, and if it's too tight or too loose, you know, your strings will slip off or your weaving won't look as even and smooth as it could. So I'm just going to loop that one around there. Come down here to the next one, loop it around. Sometimes what I'll do is I will actually flex my cardboard backwards like that. So as I am putting my warp strings on, I am guaranteeing that my strings are not too tight. You know, I'm not bending it a lot. I mean, just a little bit, just flexing it backwards so that those strings are like that good middle of the road that we were talking about. So the back of your loom should look like this. All the little teeth should have a little black or whatever color warp string you get, a little line across there and across there. I should not have any running up and down like this, like I have on the front. If you have vertical lines on the back, you need to take your warp string out and redo it. There should be no vertical lines on the back. They should just be these little horizontal ones going across. The vertical ones should be on the front. So now that I've got the starting of the string taped down, I have to cut my warp string right here. And I'm going to use my next piece of tape, and I'm going to tape that one down because I don't want this to come apart. Okay, so now both ends are taped down. Now, if you have an even number of cuts, both of your strings are going to end up on the same side. I had an odd number of cuts, so I have one at the bottom and then I've got one at the top. It's fine either way. It's just however, you know, wide you measured your board out to be. You're going to end up with an even or an odd number of cuts. One is not better than the other. It's just how it is. So I've got mine taped down. This is the front of my weaving. Okay, that will be the back. And the next step is once you get it here, you need to fold it in half. So I'm going to start, you know, and I'm going to line up my teeth like that. This is going to be a tiny pouch. But like I said, this is the third time I have re-recorded these videos. So yeah, I'm going to make the workload a little easier on myself because that was pretty devastating yesterday, having videos with no sound. So what I need to do to keep this shut is I need to tape my teeth down together so that while I'm working, they don't come apart, and then these little strings don't slip off, okay? Because we don't want those to slip off while we're working. So we use some tape to hold them in place. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my tape down on there, and I'm going to get it as close to the strings as I can without putting the tape on the strings, okay? And then I'm just going to make sure that's really good and stuck really well. And then I'm going to take my tape and I'm going to do the same thing on this end. And I'm going to get it as close as I can. Okay, and then I'm just going to press those two together. Just like that. Now these little flaps drive me crazy, so I'm going to cut them off. But, you know, if they don't drive you crazy, then hey, fine, you can keep them. But, you know, I just want them out of the way. So there's that. So that is what your loom should look like, only yours probably looks a whole lot bigger than mine. That's what yours should look like right before we are ready to start the actual weaving process. So thank you for sticking with me through this video, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks. Bye, guys.